Music,
heard,
right?
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But this, okay, let's not go there.
Or it might just be one big elevator.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
go
yeah,
down
yeah.
that road instead.
David,
Adnan, how are you?
welcome to the show, man.
Thank you
You
for having
good?
me again.
What
Good to
did
be
you
back.
make of Elon Musk doing the Hell Hitler sign yesterday?
Oh, man. The conversation around that is a bit bonkers.
It's crazy, isn't
I've
it?
seen the clip. I saw it without sound or any context, and I thought that's pretty bad. And I showed my wife, and she was like, "What is he doing?" But then you listen to the sound, and my heart goes out to you, and everything in context.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look good. And I've played this game. Like, what if it really was?
Yeah.
Like, what if he really meant it, and he's just covering up now?
Yeah.
And I kind of came to the conclusion that, you know what? If he's a Nazi, he doesn't quite fit the mold of the previous Nazis, and so maybe we need another term. Because if he's, liberal in his outlook, if he's protecting minorities, if he's looking after Jews,
Yeah.
and others, I don't think Nazi is the right word.
Yeah.
It doesn't look good, and his previous support for the AfD in Germany is not great.
What
Let's be
report?
honest. Support
He support for what?
for the AfD party in Germany.
Oh, yeah. What about them? Are they
They're pretty far right.
okay? So they have like some kind of Nazi
I
similar values and
Yeah, I think the history there is not great. So there's something maybe possibly, but the context and all of his other actions and statements certainly don't align with that. The real thing that gets me though is the same people that are making the most noise about this gesture and how outrageous it is have also supported PFLP or the Houthis or Hamas,
yeah.
which are all much more Nazi, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so it's the hypocrisy. It's a political ploy rather than any sort of principled approach to.
Yeah,
issue.
I guess there's a lot of gestures that people make that kind of look similar to the Nazi gesture.
Oh yeah, there's that picture going around of it was Obama that had done
Obama
something.
did,
I better not do it now. Someone might screenshot. Hillary Clinton. If you take someone out of context, there's AOC giving a rousing talk where she makes the gesture. It's like, well,
Yeah.
everything in its context, and let's look at the full context around this.
What is the gesture about? Why did Hitler do it? What was the whole?
I'm not sure of the exact is etymology the right word, the provenance.
Yeah.
But apparently there was a Roman salute where they did very much what Elon Musk did, hand on heart and then out. As far as I've seen, the Nazi salute is more from straight down, but then there's some neo-Nazis that have changed. I haven't got into the weeds of it. I'm no expert, so happy for people to comment below. But look, it didn't look good. If
So
there's
the Jews
something,
didn't like it. Do you think?
I think most reasonable people look at that in the full context and say he didn't mean it. He meant to give his heart out to the crowd, which is what he said.
Yeah.
That's what he meant.
Yeah.
Let's move on with our lives.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, but the absurdity of thousands of articles written about him doing the Nazi salute, and then kind of falls into all this idea of fake news and real news.
Do you remember when Posey Parker was here and she apparently did a far right hand gesture?
Yes. Yeah.
She was zipping up
Yeah,
her thing. I think there's a small group of people that are looking for something in the people that they don't like, in their ideological counterparts.
Yeah.
They're looking to smear them with something. And so if you can freeze frame in that moment in time, like someone might do for the video before if you don't cut it,
Yeah.
where I was showing what it looked like, if you just freeze frame that and then go, oh, there you go. Well, obviously someone to, not to deal with or to exclude or to cancel, rather than what's the context? What are their real motives? What do they really mean? Let's get a beat on it.
And it sounds like we haven't bloody moved on from this idea of reporting real news and not taking something out of context, and then have NZ Herald write an article going, oh, he did a Nazi salute. But when you look at the context, you go, okay, it doesn't look good, but what is the truth here?
Yeah.
Did he actually do a Nazi salute? The answer is no. So why would you report that in your headline to the New Zealanders that are reading the news. How is that acceptable? But
Well,
that seemed to be still people don't seem to have learned that lesson
100%.
of doing factual news, you know?
Well, I think it hurts the news because they're not being honest in their journalistic practice.
Yep.
They're leading with ideology rather than principle.
Yeah.
And it hurts all of the ideologues who drag everyone over to that side. But I really truly do believe this. I think most reasonable people who hear or see the headline or hear someone rave on about it and actually have seen the context or think for 2 seconds about it, realize that they're raving, which is terrible for our democracy because you want to trust the news. We should be able to trust the news as one of the pillars of our democracy. And they're shooting themselves in the foot and cutting their nose off to spite their face and all of those other metaphors that suggest that they're just pulling the rug from out of themselves.
Yeah. This conversation also sits into a very messy conversation around how we've moved the goalposts around what's anti-Semitism, what people can talk about. You know, like you have Candace Owens as being, Jews being devil worshippers. You have Daryl Cooper. Did you see him on Tucker Carlson?
No.
He's a history revisionist.
Right.
And he basically said that the real evil of World War II is Winston Churchill, not Hitler. And Hitler did not mean to put the Jews in concentration camps. He gassed them because that was the easiest solution he could find to get rid of them because he couldn't put them in anywhere else. Yeah.
Wow.
It exploded.
Wow.
So you have that.
How did I miss that?
I'll send it to you.
Yeah, thanks.
And then Elon got into trouble for some of the things he said about the Jews, and then he had to actually go to Israel and do that tour. Yeah. And then Ben Shapiro took him to the concentration camp. So he very quickly jumped on that,
So there's a perfect example, right? Made a mistake for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Has corrected it.
Yeah.
Has gone on since, not just Yad Vashem, but he's also gone and visited the October 7th sites in the kibbutzim that were attacked. I don't think that's Nazi behavior. Right?
No, that's not. But it's all messy and all over the place, and things can taken out of context, and the normalization of things. You look at someone like Kanye West. I think he got cancelled so heavily by saying the Jews control the music industry. They're ripping me off.
Well, I think actually in that case he said, "I'm going to go DEFCON 3 on the Jews."
Oh, okay. Yeah, he did say that actually.
He and Candace Owens and this guy who I should have heard of, have crossed lines.
Yeah.
And it's not that you can't talk about it.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, have your platform. Say what you want to say, but when you start to deny the Holocaust, you should expect a little bit of backlash, I think.
Yeah. Man, there's so many people I talk to, they just hate the Jews. I don't know what...
Who do you talk to, Adam?
Just people they're not my friends, but the people are openly, they're just like Zionists. They're awful people. They're evil. They control everything. Everybody is just a normal thing everybody says.
Where does it come from, do you think?
I don't know, man. It's almost like the Jews are a medium to express all the rage you have, or they're like they're a scapegoat, or
Yeah, but that's been true since history, forever. Yeah. I mean, the Jews were hated because they were too rich, and Jews were hated because they were too poor, and Jews were hated for being capitalists, and then for communists, and whatever the reason was. But in today's age, why do you think that kind of thinking persists? I mean, I think you said it yourself when you said Zionists, right? It's morphed. And I'm reminded of that essay by the late, great Rabbi Sachs. So he said that anti-Semitism is like a virus and it mutates over time.
Yeah.
And in the Middle Ages, Jews were hated for their religion. In the 21st century, the 20th century, Jews were hated for their ethnicity, and now Jews are hated because of their nationhood.
Yeah. But, why is there no hate about all the other people that are, what's the difference? What did the Jews do that's different to everybody else?
Succeed. I think Thomas Friedman's talked a little bit about this. There's a certain amount of jealousy, I think, involved, and that's not necessarily completely fair because not every Jew is massively successful. But on balance, there's something there, right? So I guess it also depends who you talk to, because other people have said that it's deeply grounded in the religious ideology. So if you think of the monotheistic religions in the world, they basically all sprang from Judaism. So Christianity was a follow-on, Jesus being a Jew, and then Islam came afterwards and said our prophet is the final prophet. And so that lineage has always been, in the eyes of Christians and Muslims, particularly in the Middle Ages, of course, has always been, well, we need to sever ties and replace the Jews, so to speak. So there's that kind of thread as well. But it persists. And I think that the other important message in this conversation is it's not just about the Jews, right? And so anti-Semitism tends to flare up when there are other societal ills. And so, like you said, the scapegoat, and whether it's deep recession or whether it's cultural issues, the finger often gets pointed at the minority that's prominent or can be prominent. And so it's really a reflection, I think, of ills of society, and like most bullying, is a reflection of the bullier more than anything else. And the important point about that is, even if anti-Semitism takes real hold, it doesn't stop at the Jews, right? Because the ills of society still stay there. People just start to realize that it might not be only the Jews. It's not really at all, but in the minds. And so it spreads. And so standing up to it, I think, is really important.
Yeah, it also kind of gets lost into this whole optics of, you can argue that hate is just a human expression. And then Hitler does something where hate turns into violence. And then that creates a group that was harmed. And there's then this concept of anti-Semitism, where there is absolute censorship about anything to do about a certain group. That creates rage because people don't feel like they can say things about Jews.
What censorship are you talking about?
I'm just generally saying, what is anti-Semitism, right? Part of anti-Semitism is like, if you say something about this group, then that's anti-Semitism, which means you can't say it, which is kind of like censorship in one way.
Well, I think it's like any sort of...
And my point is, I don't think all these people are Jew haters. I don't think all these people are Zionist haters at heart. I think they're being farmed.
Go on, what do you mean by that?
Well, rage farming is real.
Right.
Rage farming, like engagement farming online. You can use social media to do rage farming.
Right. Or the headlines that we were talking about.
Yeah, headline. That's rage farming. That's basically saying you have hate within your body, right, as a normal expression, and that's coming from your experiences, and I'm going to rage farm that towards this thing. And the subject of the targeting is Elon Musk doing an act, but the target of the joke, what is the target? Sorry, not the joke. The target of that rage farming, what is it? Jews are somehow involved in that because they fit somewhere in that pocket of you can't joke about them or you should hate them. They've been hated before. They identify themselves as victims, some of them. So let's rage farm that.
Interesting.
So I'm not saying that's true.
No.
I'm just exploring the idea of why is it always the Jews? Because I don't really believe that these people hate the Jews. When someone comes and says, well, the bloody Jews, they're controlling everything, it's like, well, you've probably been rage farmed. You've been sucked into a programming of optics and narrative and perspective. I was part of a private group on Telegram, and these guys, truly believe that 9/11 was caused by the Jews. And they have a lot of evidence, and I engage with them, and I'm like, show me some evidence. I read articles. I'm like, okay, So you kind of have to wonder, where does this come from, And maybe one of the solution is we we allow for people to speak about things that the Jews might find very offensive, or their definition of that might fall under the definition of anti-Semitism, because the truth is already there, you know. It's like, you know, if Candace Owen says the Jews manipulate the weather because it's raining a lot, where is Candace Owen saying, hey, Jews, can you please manipulate the weather in California because it's burning, we need some water, right? Where are the Jews then? So you know it's wrong. You know it's fake. You know that it's just rage farming, you know. And if someone goes on Tucker Carlson and says, well, you know, Hitler was a good guy, right? What is wrong with him saying that? Because we know what the truth is. Let's go have a look.
Yeah.
You know? So it's an interesting one. So the point is, if you remove that upsetting feeling as Jews and you kind of ignore it and you don't bite back, does that actually help your cause over time in removing yourself from the picture, and people can rage farm hate towards some other group?
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. And I kind of sympathize, though, with your central premise, which seems to be don't cancel people for ignorant anti-Semitism or anti-Semitism. And I think that's probably got a lot of truth to it. But I think again, I should see the video, but this guest of Tucker Carlson, if he comes on and says Hitler was a great man, sure, most people, I think the vast majority of people would completely disagree and understand a little bit of history enough to know that he's a bit bonkers. But I would also expect Tucker Carlson to push back. That's the job of a good interviewer, right? A good host to keep some standards, a good journalist, if you like, to keep some principled standards. And someone coming on and spewing fake news or falsehoods or lies or libels should be challenged. And so...
Yeah, it's a tough one because then you're saying Tucker Carlson is a gatekeeper of truth.
No, I'm saying he should be asking questions.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Well, hang on a second. You know, he could say, hang on a second, why do you think Hitler was a good guy? Yeah. Where do you get that?
Yeah.
Why,
he did a big mistake in the start of the interview saying you're one of the most important historians in the world. And then the conversation starts. And I'm going, why did you say that, Tucker? Because now you've lost your opportunity to actually put yourself in a neutral position here.
But even if he was and is, he should still be open to questions and challenge, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, Candace Owens is a great example. Mm-hmm. So she was spewing some wrong and vile stuff. Mm-hmm. And she's suffering for it because people are questioning and challenging her narrative. And that's good, because the other part of what I wanted to say is if you don't say anything and don't challenge it and don't oppose it, over time, the false narrative might take hold, unfortunately, because people are people and it's a nice story to believe, right?
Yeah.
And so I'll naturally believe it and there's no opposing view, and so I don't get another opinion. Anyway, we could go down a whole rabbit hole of education and the way things are presented and et cetera.
We should.
But I think challenging bad ideas or false ideas is really, really important, even if it's as a devil's advocate. So I've sat around meetings and groups of people and someone suggested something, and just for the sake of testing it out, I've presented some opposing ideas just to kind of, stress test. And let's really explore that option a little bit more from a critical perspective.
Which is what we did in our first episode around, is it the only way to get the bad guys and get your hostages out is killing 30,000 people? We debated that in for many through different stress points. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, I don't know what the solution is. And then Candace Owens, she got cancelled by the immigration of New Zealand with her visa.
I thought that was overturned.
Yeah, well, initially she was not allowed to come in, and the reason was not that she was spewing stuff. The reason was that she was denied visa by another country.
Yeah, it's stupid.
And then Chris Pink overturned it, Associate Minister, and on the grounds that this seems to be like a free speech targeting situation. So yeah, I personally, I'm not a Jew. I don't know how Jews feel about Candace Owens, But I think over time, her spewing that stuff, she's just going to shoot herself on the foot.
I agree entirely. I don't
So
think
let her just do it.
I don't speak for anyone else,
Yeah.
but I don't think denying her a visa was a good idea at all, because I'm old enough to remember Keith Locke and the Green Party saying that we shouldn't deny a visa for David Irving, who's a famous Holocaust denier, even at that time. But the reason that I don't think it's a good idea is because, first of all, it fuels that conspiracy theory, which is, I think, the point that you were trying to make, and gives her more of a profile and an ammunition.
It does.
But more importantly, it kind of takes away some of the opportunity to really dissect and counter her views. So no one knew exactly what she was going to say at the event. Let her have it. Protest outside, even, and show people what she said in the past and why it's wrong. See what she says and counter that. Let's counter the bad ideas. Let's expose them rather than try and shut them out. Because especially in the day and age of social media and the internet.
Yeah, just
Crazy.
expose it.
Expose it.
Yeah, and
She
then
said
it
some
will work
vile things.
Yeah, it will work itself out, because societies are sophisticated enough to kind of go, well, no, I don't, this is the truth. This,
I struggle with it. I mean, yes, of course I agree.
Well, that should be our expectation, that we build societies that are sophisticated enough that they stand up to the truth.
Yeah, I think in too many spheres that principle is being lost, and I think a lot of people are self-censoring because there is a mob that goes after you for certain things. And I'm not talking about anti-Semitic remarks. I'm talking more on the other side. Mm-hmm. So if you say Hamas is bad, for example, people go after you. The lady who held the sign that said Hamas is not great on Queen Street got arrested by our police, and is yelled at and spat at and abused. Like,
that's
it's
messed up.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And so that's an extreme example. But the central thesis of that idea is people need to have more courage to express their views and debate their views and have humility and have some compassion. And if someone says something that's clearly wrong, but it's coming from a genuine place, that sounds like Elon Musk's previous faux pas.
Yeah.
And he's willing to correct it, and he's willing to listen, and he's willing to go and learn and visit and take it on and change. We should be forgiving about that.
Yes, because being wrong is part of who we are as humans.
Absolutely.
You can't hold people to a standard that everybody has to be a professor and have to know all the details. And
even the professor, even the even the world expert historian should be open to critique and should be humble
should
enough
be able to make mistakes,
to realize if there's a mistake made and correct it.
Yeah.
Or amend their ideas. That's the whole point of. It should be the whole point of the academy, right? Our universities should be places of active debate and discussion in order to shape the best ideas to take society forward.
And that's not the reality we've seen with this whole Elon situation. It's like, well, he shouldn't have done that, or that cannot be, even if it's a mistake. Like, if it was a mistake, like if he came out and said it was a mistake, he would be more vilified,
But I don't think he meant it at all to be a Nazi salute. It was, I give my heart to you. My heart goes out to you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mistake, not mistake. It's a gesture that means something different in that context.
Yeah. But what my point is, if I went and did a Hitler salute, right?
Yeah.
And I intentionally did a Hitler salute.
Different story.
On stage. It's a different story. But I come back and say, well, I did it, but I now realize I made a mistake. Even if I say that, I am gone. I am cancelled, But do you know what I mean?
But the question is, why did you do it?
Because it looked fun? Right, well, whatever.
But that's not a mistake. That's because it looked fun. And depending on the context, it could have been a bit of fun, right? Yeah. I did it at the beginning of this discussion to show what was happening.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it out of any ill will or intent, and I think it's really, really important, right? Yeah. When I was traveling through Thailand, I saw swastikas on maps, right? To identify places of worship. In that context, it's not a hate symbol.
Yeah.
Right? When it's in a white circle on a red flag, flying outside, being waved with someone in a black suit, a different story. The context is really, 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 really important.
Yeah, but okay, let's say someone comes out now and he says, well, I used to be a Nazi, but now I'm not a Nazi anymore because I've actually learned that I can change my mind. My point is, society is not at a place to forgive him and let him integrate and let him be like, oh, okay, we know that you made a mistake and now you.
Well, I don't know. Certain parts of society surely will not. The ideologically opposed extremists will never let anyone like that live it down, right?
Yeah.
But there have been people that have been former Ku Klux Klan members, for example. I forget the guy in America who went around, but he's now friends with the ex-Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan, a black man, who infiltrated the group and befriended them and showed them that black people were just people, and converted. He brought people around. And so there are ex-Klansmen running around living perfectly normal lives who should be forgiven because they've seen the errors of the ways and they've made amends. And so I perhaps I'm too naive and optimistic, but I would like to think the majority of society, if they see someone genuinely show remorse and make amends and turn around, will give them another chance.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think, I'm over it myself because I see it now and I'm like, no, you're not a Jew hater. And now I have these debates. They're like, no, the Jews are, doing this. I'm like, no, you're being farmed. Do you realize that? They're like, well, no, the Jews. No, you don't have any evidence, so they're not. You might, people have bad experiences with Jews, just like you have bad experiences with any person that come from any background. You have bad business deals, you have bad this. But then you kind of go, well, maybe he's behind some bigger agenda and the Jews are attacking me. And you're like, oh, no. Come back over here, please, Yeah. And that's a lot of people, I guess a lot of people that live in this reality of what goes on X are starting to figure out that this is all rage farming in many ways. But people still get sucked into this. Biden did his farewell speech, and he said, "I want the American people and the world to know that we have a dangerous oligarchy taking shape at Washington D.C." Right? So I bumped into a friend at the airport a couple of days after that speech, and he goes, "Yeah, Trump's great. Really looking forward to it, but I'm really concerned about this oligarchy." It's like, so he's picked up that from wherever he's picked up. And he's been rage farmed because when you look at oligarchy and elites, they've been around forever. And funny enough, Biden himself and the Democrats have all these oligarchs around them that have given them more billions than they've given to Trump. George Soros, who got a Medal of Freedom. For what? For giving billions to Biden? So I explained that to him. I said, no, you're being rage farmed because it's elites are part of society. They exist, they contribute, they make wealth. At least Elon's doing it in the open. He's very transparent about the wealth and how much he's giving to Trump and America PAC that he's created. And he's open about it, and he's making mistakes, and he's cool with making mistakes. And he can rectify his mistakes because he will, go hang out with Ben Shapiro in Auschwitz and do a tour, and he'll go see the places where terrorists have killed and kidnapped Jewish kids at kibbutz and whatnot, So yeah, it's I think just people need to be just more aware that they're just being rage farmed. And
going back to where does anti-Semitism come from and thinking about the history of it, it's also troubling to realize that I guess it joins with the media story, right? The bias in our news is constant. And so the latest hostage deal, for example, was reported as like a swap, a prisoner swap, equating these innocent women with murderers held in prison.
Is that how it was reported?
Absolutely. So I was driving home on Monday when it happened, and the report on the news was something like the condition of Israeli detainees has been really terrible. And they crossed to an Al Jazeera reporter, and the Al Jazeera reporter said, yes, Khalid Jabbar is obviously been traumatized by her time in the Israeli prison, and look at the conditions she is in, it's terrible. And that was kind of the end of the story. There was no discussion about the hostages, Israeli hostages. There was no real discussion about that. It was all focused on how awful the Israeli prisoners had been treated. Not to mention that actually she just got old in prison because she was in for a while, because she was the head of a terrorist group.
And you're in a prison.
For example.
Not in a 7-star luxury hotel.
Right. And so I thought, this is...
Same applies with the
crazy.
Jewish hostages, You are being kept captive by Hamas that don't have a lot of resources. You're probably sitting in a tunnel. If you're going to come out, you're going to look like you've been staying in a tunnel for 450 days.
They're lucky to be alive.
Yeah, exactly.
Bottom line. And I thought, I want to know more details about the story because I didn't pick it all up when I was driving. And so I got home and I looked it up on the site, and I thought that it was a Radio New Zealand interview. And when I found the news replay thing, I played it back, and it was a different story, but it was the same narrative. It was, these 3 Israeli hostages have been traded for the 90 Palestinian hostages, detainees. And it was like equating the two of them. The same narrative, that these two groups of people are almost the same. But it wasn't the same story. It wasn't the same news outlet, sorry. It was on ZB. And so both our mainstream radio news organisations in New Zealand were playing the same narrative. And I thought, this is... No wonder there's people that go around and think, Jews are evil, Zionists are evil, Israelis are evil.
Yeah.
And then it spills out. And what we've seen in Australia over the last couple of weeks has been awful. Absolutely disgusting. And I'm not saying there's a direct line, but you build up enough foment, and then people who are otherwise good, honest, reasonable people start to buy into some narratives. And if you've got a little screw loose somewhere, you might be more inclined to go and commit a horrible, violent act.
Which is quite bizarre, because it's almost like what the media is doing now with the Elon Musk situation, with Australia, with this hostage release. They are pretty much doing what Hitler did. They are pretty much Hitler in a way, because they are enabling Jew hatred.
I wouldn't go that far. I think it's a...
I think so. I mean, no. I mean,
Goebbels was the propagandaist, and I think the level of propaganda in Nazi Germany under the Third Reich was a lot more intentional and concentrated than anything that we've got.
Yeah, but this looks like a sophisticated effort. There is reverse psychology involved.
I wouldn't go so far as to compare it to the Third Reich, but there's undoubtedly effort involved, and it was the modern incantation of anti-Semitism as hatred of the Jewish nation. Really started in Soviet under the Soviets, who trained Arafat, for example, and a lot of the Nazism is Zionism. Zionism is Nazism. The UN resolution in the 80s was all born out of Soviet Russia. And so a lot of that has developed from there. And now, of course, we've got Qatar's media arm, Al Jazeera, is the only free-to-air 24-hour news channel in New Zealand. And a lot of our mainstream news get their wires from there.
Wow.
So, I don't think there's a puppet master and a global conspiracy of people around the table, but sure, there's been intention and effort, and these sorts of memes get amplified and picked up. And what really, I think, is needed and is lacking is someone to stand up to it. So Australia is the best example at the moment, unfortunately. But where's the leadership to say, that's not right, it's unacceptable? For a start, the violence. I mean, that should be easy for anyone. But then why is it okay for some senior people in society to endorse the terrorists? That's not right. I'm not saying they should be in prison for it. I don't think there should be censorship. But stand up and say, you're wrong. Challenge the idea, right? Push back.
Yeah, it's a mutating virus, and it's it goes beyond just the Jews. You see Luigi Mangione, a kid, he got caught up into this rage farming hate about insurance companies killing innocent people through their policies. So he goes and shoots a man on the streets of New York who is a CEO of an insurance company because of that rage farming hatred, you know. So it's you see it's the trends are so similar in many ways, and we've seen the outcome and the results of all of the stuff that you're talking about is the Jews who were attacked after watching a football game in Netherlands, and the response from the government was just, it's like, you guys are actually you're enabling this. You're part of this. It's obvious. You can see it, you know. And you know, AOC was asked about Luigi and shootings, like, and she goes something like, yeah, that's terrible, but let's have a look at this. I'm like, no, stop. You're an elected member of the Congress. What do you mean by but? The full stop. You don't go kill people. You may not like this, or you may not like that, or you may not like this. The Jews may have done bad to you in business deal. You don't go shoot people around. There's a fine line between, you know, what's speech, what's free speech, what's hate speech, what's violence, what's threats, you know.
I see a very clear line between speech and violence. Unfortunately, though, I think your point is very well made, and that is there's not enough leadership to push back on bad ideas and to draw that very clear line between speech and violence.
Yes.
And so the people who think that speech is kind of violence blur the line, and so violence is more acceptable. And the people that don't get pushed back on these crazy ideas, if they've got something a little bit loose, or they had a bad day, or whatever the case is, and go and carry something out,
and
they should not be then lauded by anyone.
Yeah, New Zealand also has a culture problem with pushing back. We had the mayor of Christchurch voting to not do business with certain Jewish businesses. Israeli businesses, because they were involved in some land, I don't know, some stuff. So he goes on the Chris Lynch show, who is a local reporter, and then Chris asks him, like, why did you do this? And then he goes, oh, you know, actually, we don't do business with them, so it's not a big deal. It's like, what? It's a big deal. You just banned some businesses because they're Israeli businesses. You are discriminating against this group. What the hell do you think you're doing? But Chris is like, okay, let's move on to the next question. And the media is like, you know, it's acceptable to behave in this way as leaders, as mayors. What the hell? You have in New Plymouth, there's a councillor called Bali Haq. He's originally from Pakistan. He's a well-renowned, respected person in the education space. He's got an order of merit or something. He's got something, and he's gone to the council meeting and said, "Oh, we should divest from all these Israeli businesses that are involved in occupied land in Gaza." And I'm like, "What the hell's wrong with you? You know, like, what are you now, a terrorist sympathizer?" We cannot have these kind of discriminations in our communities. And the mayor rightfully so said, we got to be careful because this is going to really get the community going. And I had a rage about it online on X because it was unacceptable. This is a leadership problem. You cannot behave like this as leaders.
So I'll give you a Belushi exclusive.
Oh, yeah?
We're about to send letters to councillors in Nelson and Christchurch, which are the two New Zealand councils that have agreed to boycott some Israeli businesses.
Yes.
And the letter essentially says, you've made your decision. That's your decision. Mm-hmm. We understand the reasons for it are because these businesses have been linked to activities in disputed territories. Mm-hmm. That's your decision. There are other disputed territories in the world and other companies involved in real human rights abuses. When are you going to put them on your list? Mm-hmm. Because if you don't, it is discrimination.
Yep.
It is hypocrisy. Yep. And it is a signal that you're sending that one group of people or one nation should be treated differently to everyone else. And that seems to be a problem. So if all of your intentions are pure and all of your decisions are made with principle, not politics, then here's a list of companies that are involved in actual human rights abuses.
Yeah.
When are you putting them on your list?
Exactly.
And we'll see what they say.
Yeah, and is this going to come from the Israel Institute of New Zealand?
Yeah.
You should also approach the New Zealand Council about the comments that they've made, because I think it's unacceptable.
Which New Zealand Council?
Sorry, the New Plymouth Council.
Ah, right. Yeah.
The District Council. I'll send you the article.
Thanks.
But it's just, you can't do that. It's just unacceptable. It's you've been captured by this whole, keep saying rage farming. You've been captured. Your job as an elected member is to focus on the community in front of you, which you are screwing over again and again with 20% rate hikes and this,
Wow.
All sorts of stuff. Your mismanagement is over the roof. You have executives that are behaving in behaviors that's not appropriate. I need to talk to my lawyer about if I can say anything. There are rumors about why the ex-CEO was fired. He engaged in conduct that was unacceptable, so he was fired. And then they hid the whole story. They don't want to talk about it because they want to protect their image. But no, you're a public organization. You have a responsibility to behave in certain ways and then be transparent about what's going on. And then this thing comes up, and I'm like, okay, this is a mutating virus, and you cannot divest from one business when the other businesses are doing the things that you disagree that this group is doing.
Yeah, quite. I mean, kind of what you were also saying in there is there's dysfunction in the council by what you've been saying, and I think that reflects. So when there is an ill in society or there is a dysfunction somewhere, part of our human response is to find something else to scapegoat, point fingers at, blame, excuse, or distract from what's going on. And Israel or Jews happen to be an easy go-to.
Paul Moon had a similar sort of explanation about the Hekois, and it's likely comes from fragility, that you feel fragile about you're about something, and so you kind of activate them as the motives to kind of hide the haka in the parliament. It's like it exposes your fragility. That's why you're lashing out in some way. So yeah, I mean, dysfunctions are they expose a lot of that in these places. But good on you, man. Send these letters out, because this is unacceptable behavior. You can't do that. And then the media allows them to get away with this. They should be all over this saying, no, this is, where are the protests? Where are the people going, hey, you can't,
Well, I mean, this is another aspect of the broader discussion that we're having, and that is there's a numbers game at play here as well, right? So Jews make up 0.2% of the New Zealand population. There are many more non-Jews who are supportive, of course, but combined with that demographic difference, and generally the Jewish community is not really one to go and march up and down the streets and yell things out. The visibility is not necessarily as high, which means the perceived rightness or wrongness of an argument, because often people listen to who shouts the most rather than the substance, are not in our favour, so to speak. And the media certainly don't play their part as far as I'm concerned. And the best example of that is the whole MFAT funding UNRWA issue. I would have thought that if our taxes were going to schools that glorified the Christchurch terrorist, there might be a story or two.
Oh, yes.
But when it comes to our taxes going to schools that glorify a Jew murderer...
Yeah. And that's why the media organizations in New Zealand are dying. Which is not a good thing. We need good media. Yeah. We need mainstream media. Yesterday there was a story about TV1 shutting down their X account. They called NZME has called in staff for a meeting, likely going to be job cuts.
I heard that this morning, yeah.
And that's because exactly for these behaviors. They're not exercising their responsibility for responsible journalism. This is what you get because people
So
are not.
why do you think that is the case? Why do you think journalist is a great example? Because here is a profession that should be founded on impartiality and adherence to facts. Why do you think journalists have strayed so far from that, Telos?
I'd love to know. I have no idea. I mean, I don't consider myself as a journalist, although I'm aware that I create media. I don't know whether it's people who naturally lack a sense of constitution, morality, whether they're easily swayed or captured, or whether they are not independently functioning. I've heard stories about New Zealand where there is a very strong network that controls what's acceptable journalism, what's not.
Really?
That it can naturally form. So, for example, journalists get together, they report the news. It's unintentional. They become friends. They create a WhatsApp group, and they're like, "Hey, look at this. Hey, look at that," and that naturally creates a standard of functioning between all of us as journalists. That this is the report we should report. That is the report we should not report. Not that they are having that conversation saying, don't report that Jews, or only report Jews as bad. But it naturally happens. And that's not okay because you need to maintain your individual sense, responsibility of what journalism is.
Yeah, it's interesting. I
There's
think
a lot of
there's probably
evolutionary
something.
psychology that goes on.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And
But I think-
Gad Saad has a very good explanation of these things.
Go on. What does he say?
Just similar things as I'm speaking. I mean, he wrote The Parasitic Mind.
Yeah.
He's a Lebanese Jew. He left Lebanon when the civil war broke, and he's now based in Canada. And he does a lot of content on X, but he's also a professor. He wrote The Parasitic Mind, which is where these mind viruses, how they become infectious ideas, become mind viruses, and then he's also writing a new book called Suicidal Empathy, how in the Western world we have empathy towards groups that are to a point suicidal. And these ideological suicidal empathy exist in this journalism world where people feel, well, we cannot write anything bad about the Maori people, for example, because they're a minority group. We have to be empathetic towards them with no reservation. Right? And that's how they report their news on because they just simply cannot. And that comes from these ideas that Gad Saad talks about. Very profound mind and a contributor to all these things. And he helps the likes of Elon Musk if things, because they're really good friends. They interact with each other. If you don't consume his content, you have to. It's really, really, really good. Good guy, good contributor. I think, that's a big problem. Paul Moon came in. We talked about, like, for example, the whole Maori history, and we talked about not the great things, a lot of not great things that went on in the Maori community, just like any other community. It's normal. So why is it that we can't talk about that? He wrote a book about cannibalism in the Maori culture. And when the missionaries came along, they created literacy, Maori literacy. They spent 3 decades and created the Maori language. The literacy was more higher in Maori communities than in the English settling communities in New Zealand, right?
Right.
But for some reason, in our media platforms, we can only talk about Maori as being the oppressed people. They're the victims, the oppressed. And I'm pretty sure a lot of Maori people who are very successful, they've got nothing to do with that. They're just part of New Zealand, evolution. They're very successful people. They're pretty pissed off too. And you get disinterested and you don't read, you don't click, your advertising revenue goes down, and it's a slippery slope. You have to get rid of people. CNN lost $400 million since Trump got elected in revenue. Wow. Because why? They kept saying he's Hitler. He's a threat to democracy. He's this, he's that.
But so that's a very concrete, assumed concrete link between the two. But the other thing that it does is it devalues the term Hitler and Nazi.
Yeah, overused.
I mean,
genocide.
yeah,
It was so overused last year. It's like now, phew,
yeah.
you've lost your argument now, because you've lost it, and I don't think anyone's used it this year.
Oh, no, plenty of people still have it.
Really?
Course. Yeah, I mean, the narrative kind of shifted with the last deal, and now apparently Hamas is winning. So I think genocide's been replaced with victory for now. I don't like that whole mindset. I actually appreciate it being out in the open, because I think most reasonable people who have heard genocide repeated and repeated and repeated, especially in the news, and by the likes of Amnesty International, these like organizations that have a halo around them, may have started to believe it. But now when they hear this complete shift to victory because the murderers are being let out of prison so that some innocent civilians can come home, I think reasonable people that have been keeping half an ear to the news, that might have been believing the genocide lie, now maybe will see the pictures of these masked terrorists surrounding the hostages being handed over to the Red Cross, and maybe think they might have been duped, and they didn't get the full picture before. I'm hoping.
Yeah, and I think the shame as well you find in government organizations, they never come out and say, oh, actually, we knew that UNRWA was funding this hate speech.
Worse than that, they've tried to censor us.
Really? Are you talking about MFAT?
MFAT. So they wrote and said that our criticism of the decisions and the senior officials who are named on their website and in the Official Information Act material, that our criticism is a breach of the Privacy Act and constitutes harassment.
Wow.
And they wrote to NetSafe and the police and the Privacy Commissioner. NetSafe took these complaints seriously.
Yeah.
I got asked to have a phone call with one of their mediators, who told me that one MFAT staff member, I shouldn't laugh because it may be true, she has been suffering emotional harm for 4 years because we published Official Information Act material with her name in it that was released by MFAT. And that was a breach of the Harmful Digital Communications Act. It's been up since 2021.
Wow.
So there, and then there are some other. There's a very senior MFAT officials named on their website with senior titles who we expect have autonomy and responsibility, and
they get paid well, taxpayer money.
So they have claimed emotional harm because we have referred to Information and Official Information Act material that shows that they have been involved in the decision-making process to fund the schools that glorify the murder of Jews, and the organisation that employs terrorists.
Wow.
And so NetSafe took all this seriously. They didn't decide to dismiss it. And that's where it's kind of ended, because we've said it's fair criticism. And we've, even before it got to that stage, when MFAT first threatened us with action, I wrote to them and I said, well, tell us where we're wrong. I'm very open, like, please, I'd love to be wrong on this, please. Like, actually, please tell me where it's wrong.
Yeah.
And all we got back was, no, we don't fund any hate, we don't fund any terror. You can't characterize it like that. It's a breach of the Privacy Act and you're harassing our staff. So,
well, it's public knowledge.
And then they
that
took the actions.
UNRWA's funding, it's nothing to do with just an institute in New Zealand.
So now it's at the Privacy Commissioner's got a hold of it, or there's a complaint that's lodged. We'll see what this year brings, but they're trying to censor us. They're trying to say you cannot criticize our staff for making these decisions.
Wow.
It's extraordinary. It's absolutely extraordinary. I would have hoped that when we sent the letter that said, please tell us where we're wrong. Let's have a discussion about this. Here's our evidence. Here's what's publicly available that we've gathered together. Here are the terrorists that have been employed over the years. Here are the textbooks that have been repeatedly found to have glorification of Jew murder. Here are the groups of teachers that have clearly been inciting violence on social media. Here are the facilities that have been used by terrorists. Here are the links to Hamas. Here's all the evidence. Tell us where we're wrong, please.
Yeah.
Which staff at MFAT have opposed this or raised even a concern about this or suggested that we only give to the food program or have looked at alternatives to the hate in the schools or have done any sort of critique. Nothing.
Yeah.
Not a single MFAT employee has raised a concern about it internally, according to their OIA response.
Yeah.
So tell us we were wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Please, I really want to be wrong.
It's a very simple technique that governments use. We are the government, so we'll come and badger you because we have more. I don't know what the word is, but I had a guest on my show yesterday, and he talked to me about how New Zealand is literally a police state. It's not a democracy; it's a police state because we don't have a Second Amendment. We can't defend ourselves. And he had his house raided by many police officers while he was feeding dinner to his kids because he questioned and challenged the buyback gun laws, right? And it was politically motivated. And 5 years later, he's won the case. But the police just gets the slap on the wrist. They don't get any, they don't get done. And it shows that we live in a state where the government wants to walk around and say we have the ultimate power, not the people. Whatever we do goes, and we can throw our weight around. He had 2 months before his house was raided, he had the New Zealand Secret Service contact him. I think they're called NZSIS or something. And they said, hey, do you want to come and have lunch with us? There's a nice sushi place where you live. And then he goes, have you been looking at my bank accounts? Because that's the sushi place that I go all the time. It's like, no, we don't have that information. And then, they take him out for lunch and they tell him that the government have asked them to investigate the right wing.
Okay.
And he goes, well, what is the right wing? He's like, well, maybe you could tell us what the right wing is. Right. And this has all happened when the whole shooting happened in Christchurch. And obviously they're looking for white supremacists that might, that who have guns and firearm licenses. He had a firearms license. And he was like, well, maybe you should look at the far left extremists, And he's playing with them and he's trolling them and all sorts of stuff. And then when this happened, he went to them and said, well, I need you to give me records of this conversation because I want to make sure, I have the documentation. He's like, well, we're a Secret Service agency. We cannot confirm or deny that we've ever met with you. And we went into this whole conversation about how, we literally live in a police state and these guys think that they can just do whatever they do. And if you criticize them, then they'll just come after you and they'll use the media to assassinate your character and that, but you're just simply doing your job and you're not doing anything wrong. And I have a guest on tonight who fought the New Zealand government in the United Nations for 30 years against state care child abuse.
Oh, wow.
And he eventually won.
Wow.
Because the Lake Alice Hospital, where this crazy psychiatrist was shocking children and all that stuff, and eventually, but the government fought it so hard. They fought this guy so hard, and when he did his application at the United Nations looks at it and goes, "We're gonna, we want New Zealand. The government, need to respond to this." And they hired this huge team to fight it. And they make an application which was like 1,500 pages long to defend that they were not involved in any of this.
Wow.
Right? And they lost. And that's why late last year, the Prime Minister did an apology in Parliament. They met with all these children that were in their care that got abused. And there's a redress offer. So he's coming in again to talk about that.
I look forward to listening. That sounds like a fascinating story.
Yeah, he was in last year when he talked about this, when it came out.
Right. No, but now there's been...
Yeah, now there's been... Yeah, so he's coming in. But it just... All of this just shows that they behave like, it's not a democracy. There's just like they behave like the very guys that they condone and condemn.
Well, this is one of the things that I wrote back to NetSafe. I said, look, you've caused me emotional distress because you're
Exactly.
an official agency that's one step before the district court that carries weight, that's meant to be investigating, pedophiles and exploitation of children online.
Yeah.
And you're asking me to come into mediation
Yeah.
for legitimate political critique.
For information.
Of senior civil servants who are named on the website and on the Official Information Act requests.
Yeah.
Do you not think that that's a little bit ironic?
Yeah.
I hope the person who contacted me seemed very reasonable. I hope that some of that messaging has got through, and I honestly think they need to recalibrate their thresholds.
Yeah.
Because they seem overwhelmed with complaints, and so they should be prioritizing the child porn and the doxing of people and the serious online stuff that might actually need to be dealt with.
Exactly.
But it seems like they've taken, politicized complaints seriously. It's deeply concerning.
And if
I have to say also that if it wasn't for the team that we've got, we might have caved in the early days. Because when that first letter came from MFAT saying, your Privacy Act complaint, it's all harassment, and they CC the police and NetSafe, it's pretty serious, right? And so internally we were like, well, maybe it's better just to shut up and move on.
Yeah.
And then we're like, well, no, hang on, what have we done wrong?
Yeah.
Let's ask what we've done wrong.
Exactly.
Here's our evidence. Here's why we've said what we've said. Here's what we think's going on. This is our opinion. Show us what's wrong. Please. If there's something wrong, we'll correct it. Absolutely. No doubt about it. But we're not going to just lie down and because you don't like the criticism.
Exactly.
The fact that you're sending my taxes to Jew murderers offends me.
Yeah. It causes me emotional damage.
But let's have the proper discussion about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So even if they turned around and said, that's what happens, but it's the political price that we pay for other stuff, a free trade deal with the UAE or whatever. Yeah. We're protecting Helen Clark because she was head of UNDP when a lot of the stuff was going down. There's political reasons potentially behind it, or we had no idea, or whatever. But there's no honesty, there's no openness, there's no transparency. It's all censor. You better shut up. We're using the authorities to come after you.
This is either a shakedown, which it's common practice in governments. They try to shake you down, see if you're going to roll over, or it's either they're going to go and charge you, right? And if they pursue that, they know that it's going to make them look bad because this becomes news.
Well, but it depends how it's reported, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. Now we have podcasts, right?
Well, yeah, but so when this broke, I put a letter out to all of our supporters and I said, just to let you know, we've got this very serious letter. Here's our letter asking we've got it wrong. We'd love for anyone to tell us what we've done wrong. Let's just open it out there, please. What are we missing? Mm-hmm. And at the moment, we think this is legitimate political critique of an abhorrent practice.
Yeah.
We're going to continue. If someone sees what we've done wrong, I'm very happy to say we got that bit wrong. We're very sorry. We're going to correct it. Let's do the right thing.
Yeah.
No one's come back to say it's wrong. But that letter got into the hands of a journalist. And I got a phone call saying, would you be willing to talk about this? I said, sure, yeah, I'm happy to talk about it.
Yeah.
And the article that was written had none of the substance. And it was all about how it read a little bit like
to mainstream media. You should always say no.
Evil Inns was harassing MFAT staff. It's like, well, it's not entirely correct, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's just
and that's
zoom
just
out a
rage
little bit.
farming
Yeah.
again. Here is a Jew with all these elite Jews that are harassing, public servants. That's perfect for these guys, and that's why they're dying. If you want my recommendation, don't, as New Zealand Institute, do not talk to media.
I'm with you.
With me, only with me. Just come here as exclusive,
Exclusive.
This is your
Exclusive,
exclusive,
I'll take that under advisement.
And well, you guys pay me, so I'm like,
Oh, what? That's not true. It's not true. It's not true. You get your money from the Rothschilds like all of us. That's not true either.
When I did your podcast,
Is it your turn on the space laser this weekend?
Yes.
Or have you got the weather machine? I
got the weather machine this time.
Weather
yeah.
machine. All right.
Yeah.
Can you make it rain in Florida?
There'll be some hell.
California?
Well, I live in Taranaki, and the mountain needs to explode because the mountain now is a man. The mountain is actually a.
I read this.
Yeah.
So what happens if it explodes though? Is it responsible for the damage?
Exactly. Right. I mean, what is it? You're having outbursts on public, and you're expressing aggression. Right.
Yeah.
You have to go to prison if you kill people. What about if you kill people? Right. If you have the ability to shoot fire out of your mouth, and then you kill people, what are we gonna do?
So I won't go down this track. But
so when I did the Juliet Moses podcast, and then I did yours, I had all these people saying, "Oh, you've been paid by the Jews to do this. You're a Zionist. You're this," and I was like, "Yeah, they pay me. What are you gonna do, huh?"
But there's no money involved in this, Adnan.
No, there's no money. No one's paid me. No one's paid me. Hey, I'm a satire comic,
Oh,
Figure
crazy.
it out yourself.
It's crazy.
It's
crazy.
Follow the money. It's bizarre. It's the fact of the matter is, the whole world is very much aware what UNRWA is up to.
I hope so.
Well, the stories have come out, and we know that they have been engaging in terrorist activity, and so for New Zealand MFAT to hide that's not okay.
Outright deny.
And denied. That's not on. That is wrong. You are wrong in that. And then you pause the funding. Remember when they paused the funding?
Oh, this was just as we were talking last time.
May 2024, around that time. They paused the funding. Obviously, they have been informed.
There were allegations.
There were allegations.
Yeah.
But nobody investigates the allegation. And then go, well, actually, we'll start funding again.
No, they did investigate, and 9 UNRWA staff were suspended.
Yes.
But there was no clear admission from the UN that they were actually involved in the terror activities that they're caught on camera being involved in.
And that's why New Zealand resumed the funding.
Because the UN's dealt with it, was kind of their excuse.
Yeah, let's just keep giving them more money,
So we'll see what happens this year on that whole front, because it's the censorship attempts on us, and our funding is due again this year.
And
it's another $1 million in a couple of months it's going to go, potentially.
And this is why we need to look at this peace deal, that's the recent one that's been discussed in Qatar, and really look at it not naively and go, because that's what the world does. When there's a peace deal announced and Trump put it up and everyone's like, look, the problem is solved. Let's move on to the next problem, Oh my God, there's a peace in Qatar. Sorry, there's peace in Gaza and there's peace in Israel. Let's move on. But if you look at the whole thing, you go, well, let's look at what's fishy in here and what's actually really going on. What are the phases? How many hostages are we releasing? And what are we going to do with Hamas? Mm-hmm. Because when you look at the 3 hostages released by Hamas, they still look like they're in control and they're controlling the whole thing, And the only reason this deal is going through is because they saw that Trump's coming in and Trump's going to destroy them in 2 weeks' time, like he did with ISIS, which was enabled by Obama. Obama was giving weapons to Syrian revolutionary fighters who turned into being ISIS and killing so many people and then infiltrating Iraq, right? I believe, and I have a feeling, that government organizations know that they are somehow involved in funding terrorists, whether directly or indirectly, and they do it as part of their geopolitical play and national security and the partnerships they have with everybody involved, but they don't want to admit it. So when I look at MFAT, I'm going, there is no way that you didn't know that this was going on. There is absolutely no way. You are very intelligent people, and you are very intelligent operators. Winston Peters has been doing this for a very long time. You're telling me you didn't know? No, bullshit.
No,
Absolute bullshit.
That's what I think. And it's even proven in some of the documents. So there's a meeting between the manager of humanitarian aid, Deb Collins is her name, and UNRWA, in which she's recorded as saying, this is a few years ago when the EU-funded report on the textbooks came out. And that report found that the textbooks, just like the last decades of reports found, glorified terror, were violently anti-Semitic, incited hate, etc., etc. Just awful stuff being taught to kids. So that report had just come out, and in this meeting between MFAT and UNRWA, Deb Collins is recorded as saying she's not really surprised by the results of the report. So, of course they knew. Of course they know. They're not stupid.
Yeah.
And it's documented, right? And so the question is, why do they continue funding? And I agree with you. I think it's geopolitical. I think there's something that they value more than the murder of Jews. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. There is a reason why countries want terrorists to continue doing what terrorists do.
I'm not sure that at that level
There has to be, because
quite
we
the
have
analysis.
enough.
So-
We have enough
No.
resources to destroy terrorists in 2 days.
If
We can
no,
get into
no,
Gaza.
I'm not not without huge collateral damage, and I'm not sure that that's optimal. I really don't. I think the precedent that sets is ugly. But coming back, here's another example. In order to prescribe a terrorist organisation in New Zealand, the terror designation working group, part of government, has to recommend it. In that group is the SIS and GCSB and police, as you would expect. There's the Prime Minister's office. There's the Attorney General, I think, like legal things. So that is what you would expect for national security issues at that level.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. Now, that to me suggests that there is a foreign affairs, i.e. political, and or trade reason for or not for prescribing certain terror groups, which doesn't align with the official New Zealand government line that the terror designations are not politicised. So if they're not politicised, why do you need MFAT?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So why was Hezbollah and Hamas not designated by New Zealand until last year, after October 7th? The reason given in the official documentation, because you don't get anything else out, the reason given is that it might affect New Zealand's future national interests. Now, I don't know exactly what that means. It sounds to me like political talk for trade. So designating Hamas and Hezbollah may affect New Zealand's trade with Iran, Qatar, potentially the UAE, other countries, maybe. So I might be wrong on this. I'm very happy to be corrected. Please write it in the comments below.
I think part of the problem why we have all these problems is that not enough people stand up and say, hey, if you don't stop it, there'll be hell to pay. Right?
Yeah.
And I don't care how many people die, not die, it has to stop. If you want it to stop, then you got to deal with the collateral damage that comes with it. If you want it to really stop, why do we don't want it to stop?
No, well, we're talking about different timescales, though.
Yeah, but Trump put out a message and said, if you do not release the hostages before I get in, you're going to disappear and there'll be hell to pay. Right? He said that. And I agree with him. And all of a sudden, there's a deal, there's ceasefire, there is people being released, there is this, there is that. But I think that's what is missing. We all need to stand up and say, listen, if we really want it to stop, then accept the collateral damage and make it stop. But every week there are terrorist attacks. Every week terrorists keep growing. Since 9/11, there's been 80,000 terrorist attacks. Thousands of people have died. So if you really want it to stop, accept the collateral damage, pull the weed out, and then get on with it. Because in 50, 100 years' time, you don't have it.
No, well, I'm not sure that's entirely feasible, because that might... So let's just zoom out for a second. over the last 472 days, Hamas is greatly diminished in Gaza. They can put on a show when they harass hostages handing over, but their military capability is severely compromised. Hezbollah is severely compromised in Lebanon, which has had flow-on effects, of course, in Syria. The whole axis of the Islamic Republic of Iran is on its knees, basically, in the region. So militarily, perhaps what you're saying is a quick stop to hostilities. The problem that I see is on a longer time frame. And so accept the collateral damage maybe for the short term, but as a lot of people have said, that has the possibility to radicalize later on, and you haven't dealt with the core problem. Now, we can take this at different layers. Core problem
I
Iran, or the core problem even just within the Arab-Palestinian community. The schools will still operate glorifying the murder of Jews. They will still teach that the whole land is theirs and no one else's. They'll still teach all of this indoctrination. That means it'll come under a different name, but the weapons will flow from Iran again to whichever group pops up, and things will continue.
Yeah,
and that's the problem that I have. Is why is this idea that Jews having self-determination in part of their historical indigenous land not accepted by the world? Why is a view antithetical to that tolerated? That's the core of the longer term problem.
You can take it a layer further. You can say, well, terrorism is a method to fight against injustices and not having enough resources because you've been suffocated enough to not be allowed to have a sovereign state where you can do trade and build prosperity. So you can go you can take it to that layer where people can justify why terrorism exists.
But that's all bullshit in the case of Gaza. In 2005, the last Jew was forcibly dragged out of Gaza across the border into Israel, and the authorities in Gaza had every single opportunity to build up and prosper and have a state and have self-determination and create something. The problem that I'm talking about in the longer term is the ideology that says Jews should not have self-determination in any part of that land. If you look at not only the Arab-Palestinian leaders and factions and groups, but their supporters in the Western world, the message is not, let's build a thriving Singapore of the Middle East along the Mediterranean. It's not, let's invigorate the West Bank and create a Palestine that is a force of good in the world and an economic powerhouse in whatever industry. That's not the vision. The vision is destroy Israel.
That's right.
And that's what I mean when I talk about the longer term implications. So I think it's extraordinary what has happened to Hezbollah, Hamas to a certain degree as well, but the crippling of the Islamic Republic of Iran's stranglehold in that area and their terror proxies has been remarkable over the last 472 days.
Biden enabled that.
Well, Biden enabled it to continue. Israel has crippled a large faction of it. Trump will hopefully push it further back, but that's all as far as these things go. Very short. The shortest term, a nanosecond. The longer game is how do we, as I think I talked about last time, how do we build a society for Arab Palestinians and others that recognizes Jewish self-determination in part of their land, that recognizes that they can build and not destroy Israel. Because currently the focus is on destroying Israel, and we enable it by funding UNRWA and by statements saying, oh, well, now that there's a bit of a ceasefire, we need to talk about a two-state solution, as if the two-state solution was the problem in the first place. It wasn't the problem. The problem was a want to kill Jews and destroy their self-determination.
Yeah. I think the real game here, in terms of what's going on, I think there's a geopolitical war going on. There are two narratives that want control of the Middle East. One is a westernized, modernized, prosper, that kind of stuff. And Israel fits into that. America has that foreign policy vision for the Middle East. They've invested in countries like Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Emirates to have that philosophy. That's team one. And the other team is they want to control what Islam is. And that's the Iran's perspective. They want Islam to be this extremist thing. They want Jerusalem, Prophet Muhammad's some tomb or something isn't over there. So there is that war going on. And the reason they've created these proxy terrorists in Lebanon like Hezbollah and Hamas is because they want to create these terrorist-based states recognized by the United Nations. Like we have the Taliban, they want their vision of what Islam should be, control that land, be recognized, and then trade and hold that land for themselves, okay? And when the Abraham Accords happened, when Trump was in his first term, we saw a huge and a lot of sanctions on Iran because Trump's foreign policy is Iran. Go after Iran. You get that out, sanctions, and, make sure they're not trading.
I think is correct.
Huh?
Which I think is correct.
Yes. But the problem that Biden did was Biden sanctioned Russia. And then Russia went and became friends with all these extremist countries, and they have created their own little pocket, which is BRICS and, all these other sort of
Well, they were always together. I mean, Syria was controlled by Iran and Russia.
Yeah. But if you want a modern Singapore, Gaza as a Singapore of Middle East, and you want that modernized Islamic region, you keep Russia close as America, okay? And you do that because you don't want them starting all of a sudden being close to Iran, buying weapons from Iran to fight Ukraine, which is essentially fighting America because America is funding weapons to Ukraine. You don't work with, you don't allow them to gather together and like China, the first thing they did after America left Afghanistan, they did a $300 million deal with Taliban, this is China, for helping rebuild Afghanistan because obviously it's a geopolitical play. There are pipes going through. So, when the West gets out of it, all of these guys conquer and Israel's going to be in big trouble. But now we have Trump. And if we push that political play of getting Iran under control and removing all the terrorists and pushing a modern, less extreme Islamic version of the Middle East, then we are in a better place for Gaza. Gaza wins out of that. It becomes the Singapore like you talked about. But if you look back the last 3-6 months, who's actually been doing all the work? Israel. They got all these pager bombs going. They defeated Hezbollah like never before. It showed the capacity of Mossad. They've come back very positive in the eyes of a lot of people and lots of media in destroying the terrorists all by themselves. There's, I
don't think so. I think there's a couple of things going on there. It hasn't all been only the large part has, of course, but what's been remarkable to me has been some of the rockets and missiles that were fired from Iran were intercepted by Saudi over Saudi airspace.
Okay.
Some of the missiles sent from the Houthis in Yemen were shot down by US boats. So it's not like Israel's alone in this.
But they're leading the way.
Of course they're leading the way. They have
and
to lead the way.
Their approach has worked in this war in many ways.
It has, militarily. It's the PR war that I think is not necessarily going so well, and that's partly because of all the reasons that we've already talked about. And
in the mainstream media, not. In the independent media, they're winning. Yeah. You go into the independent space.
I honestly, the last 472 days has been in some ways refreshing because the number of people that have reached out to me spontaneously, randomly, has been humbling. To say, we're with you, we support you, Thank you for speaking out. And we, if there's something we can do to help, we will, just privately. That's great. And so I do think that most reasonable people watching what's going on will stand with the woman and not the terrorists in that hostage swap. Will stand with Israel against Hamas. Where I fail to see that translating into a peaceful future is when we still give money to schools that promote Jew hatred and the land is entirely for the Arabs only. Like,
this is why
if we want to rebuild our, I think I spoke about this last time. If we are going to rebuild Gaza, it's got to be with a different education system.
Yeah,
it has to.
Yeah.
Otherwise, either there's going to have to be like a North Korea level border demarcation and control of stuff, which will be this endless, quote, occupation, or ongoing wars. And
this is why these peace deals are problematic. On the surface, everybody goes, the media, the government, say, oh, well, let's give them more money because we have a peace deal and everything is fine. But no, it's not fine.
It's not fine.
Because who is, this peace deal is, why are we doing a peace deal with a terrorist organization?
But I wouldn't even call it a peace deal.
That's right, exactly. It's not a peace deal.
Israel's going to release 1,900 prisoners who, many of them are on multiple life sentences for vile acts of terror. Yeah. So I don't know if you recall, in 2011, Yahya Sinwar was released as part of a prisoner exchange for an Israeli soldier that was held in Gaza. Sinwar went on to be one of the people that led the October 7th attacks. Now there's 1,900 more of him being released. That's not peace.
No, but I think Trump is playing
extortion. It's not even a deal.
No, it's not. And all of these 1,900 people, you're right, they're going to go become terrorists. But I think Trump is playing a bigger game. He never shows his hand. And I think this is about getting the people out and making it look like it's a deal with Hamas. And Hamas feels like maybe we can start to then have our control and control Gaza and, stop the killing. The mainstream media will celebrate it because they think, oh, it's a ceasefire. All these kids are not dying. Meanwhile, MFAT is sending money to UNRWA to teach all these people so they can become more Jew haters and salute to Hitler. And I hope that Trump is playing a bigger game because I think it's a different ball game when all of the hostages are released.
I hope
we will look at it very differently.
I'm not entirely convinced that this extortion racket is got Trump's fingerprints all over it. I think he's an impetus for Hamas agreeing to it finally. But it's a heavy price to pay. And we'll see. We'll see what the coming weeks have in store for how much the deal is adhered to. Because in the last rounds, Hamas only went to stage 1 and then reneged. So we'll see. And we'll see what Trump's response will be. We'll see what Israel's response will be. But I think your point is getting the people home is the priority, has been from day one Israel's stated goal. Get our people home and destroy Hamas. Those have been the two objectives stated clearly and openly, ongoing, repeatedly, consistently. And that's why, as heart-wrenching and as difficult as it is, and I totally understand the opposition to this extortion, but if that's the way to get our 95 more hostages home, that's the way to get them home. And those lives and bodies, unfortunately, but those lives is what really counts. And then let's look at the immediate concern about terror, but more importantly, I think, let's look at the bigger picture. How is it going to be rebuilt? What is the education system going to look like?
Yeah.
And why the heck have Western governments, including ours, been funding hate? It should stop.
Yes, big time. And I think we are going to go through this whole, you're going to have MFAT continue doing what they're doing. You're going to have the mainstream media, not really focusing on the details. You're going to have Qatar and Hamas and Everybody in this is kind of, the way geopolitics works is like, you know, it's a selfish approach. Everyone's like, well, why am I involved? What am I getting out of this? Is it more political score? Is it more this? Is it more that? Is it because I'm doing a trade deal with America? Do I have to make Trump happy? Everyone is in this not for let's do the right thing. That's not the only sort of like token that or lens or approach people take in these organizations, government environments, and geopolitical environments to make decisions. There's a lot that goes on. So many layers are sometimes integrated, sometimes chaotic, sometimes, when you have something like Trump coming in and winning the election, I would think and I would imagine MFAT would have started this work 3 months before the election, going, let's do some predictive analysis around Trump coming in, what his policies are, what's his stance are, and how does that make everything look like for us. Who are we funding? Who are we not funding? Where's our leverage? Where's not our leverage? What are we losing? What are we gaining? What does trade look like? What are the things Winston Peters should be saying? What are we saying at the UN Assembly? It's all a game. They love game theory more than we love, doing the right thing.
Possibly. I think there are of course, vested interests all over the place, which is why I raised the issue of the terror designation.
There's 8 billion people in the world.
I'm missing something, but foreign affairs and trade influence on our national security terror designations seems like a politicization of the process.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a good saying that there's 8 billion people in the world and there's only 200 governments. Why is that? And the obsession about land and sovereignty and control and media, propaganda. There's a lot of game theory in this. There's a lot of game theory, and everyone's sort of part of the system in some way or the other. And but there are good people, and there are people who want to do the right thing, and they want to criticize when they are not doing the right thing, and they're hiding stuff like you've been doing, rightfully so. And that stuff has to stop. There's a lot that everybody should be doing in getting Gaza back to what Gaza should be, to its full potential, and Israel existing as a permanent state forever, and deal with all this rage farming, Jew hatred, all of that stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wish there were some clearer answers, but some strong leadership would go a long way.
Yeah, leadership is a big one, yeah.
If there were people that could walk the talk rather than just make the right noises and then...
Yeah, remember the time when all these countries were lining up to open up embassies for Hamas?
No,
Remember
really?
that time? Yeah, I mean, that was...
Well, in 2006-ish, when they just took over?
No, that was before we did our podcast. There was this whole movement around either designating Hamas as a terrorist organization or opening up embassies for them, or recognizing them as a state. Remember that conversation?
No, I'm sorry, I don't. I know we talked about the designation. That's always been an issue for New Zealand and other countries.
No, that really happened. There are videos of, I think there was the Prime Minister of Ireland doing a press conference saying, hey, we recognize Hamas as a government, as a state. This is before their leaders were killed in Iran. This is before Yahya Anwar, who was, what's the other guy's name? Ismail Haniyeh. He was killed in Iran. He was hanging out with Turkey, and Turkey has a lot of, he's the reason why Bashar Assad had the fall. He pushed all these radicals and, it's they're all in, yeah.
Well, those countries don't surprise me. I mean, Ireland has been one of the worst Western nations. I imagine South Africa would have been having similar conversations. And of course, there's a whole bunch of Arab countries.
Yeah, and
nations.
Conor McGregor is about to run. I think there's talk
What
about...
are his politics?
I think he's all about make Ireland great again, kind of like similar populist
Trump, yes.
MAGA movement.
Right.
Because he's a phenomenon like Trump,
Yeah.
and he's someone in the fighting game that's reached more people than anybody. So I think that's kind of like what he is doing, and he's kind of pissed off with this whole woke ideology and all that stuff.
Interesting. When are their elections?
Don't know. He was at a inauguration party for Trump, and that's
really?
where that conversation kind of went viral.
Gosh, it's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, I think some of Trump's policies are fabulous, and a lot of his foreign policy, at least on the Israel issues, as far as I can see, have been really, really good. And the Abraham Accords are the fruits of some of that, which are still remarkable and worthy of a Nobel Peace Prize. That'll never come. But then, you look and you think, how on earth did such a remarkable democracy like the United States end up with Trump and Biden as candidates, or even Camilla? Out of the 320 odd million people in that wonderful country, there's got to be better people to take up that position.
That exposes a lot about what the system is and how the system promotes and how the system, and that's, a lot of that system is what is in New Zealand. You have to toe a certain line to, like Winston Peter was not around for 3 years in opposition. He showed up at the last minute, and he saw a lot of group of angry people from whether it was freedom of speech, whether it was two genders, whatever it was. He used that, and he got his 8% bump, and he's back in. And the MPP environment, is it MPP or MMP? The MMP environment in New Zealand works in a way where if you're not going to give these little parties a lot more than they should be getting based on the elected seats, then they're going to go with somebody else. And that's what Winston Peter did by getting Jacinda in, and he is. And I don't know why my audiences love him. It's bizarre. My audiences, they love Winston Peters.
Let us know why. I mean, look, there is something charismatic about the guy, particularly in the debates. He's quick-witted. He's obviously, smart and experienced. There is something that shines about him. I think he has a great ability to tap into populist ideas that aren't given voice, and to give them voice. And he's got a lot of flaws, clearly. I think probably the biggest flaw is it seems to be about Winston, and not actually New Zealand first, ironically enough. Perhaps. Yeah.
And he comes from a very different generation of politics. He's been around for a long time, like the dinosaurs. But it's like,
well, that's Trump's experience. That's wisdom.
Yeah, Trump's like 78.
He's remarkable, isn't he?
Yeah, he's just still going. And he...
Not just going, Adnan. From early until late, and hard decisions and proper meetings and on the ball. And I don't know if I could keep up with such a schedule,
I think his campaign...
Not with my young one.
Yeah, I know. His campaign last year was, I think, one of the best that I have been, I've witnessed and been involved in through my podcast and my satire news. It was so much fun. He's a troll. He's anti-fragile. Biden calls Republicans garbage, if you remember that.
Yeah, I know.
And then
he rides the rubbish truck.
Yeah, then he's riding a rubbish truck. It's just like trolling them, and he's really good. I mean, the messages he puts up online, it's just like, he wants to, he keeps calling Justin Trudeau the governor, the 51st state governor, and he wants to get Canada involved. Now he's flying his plane in Greenland. He's like, well, we're going to get Greenland away from Denmark, and we're going to rename the Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America.
People take some of this seriously as well, which is also amusing. Although the Canadian election is going to be really interesting.
Well, it's going to be exactly what's happened in New Zealand. Justin Trudeau has resigned, just like what Jacinda did, knowing that they're not going to win. They've already lost the elections. Pierre has a 91 or 95% rating in the polls. So he is going to win. He was just having a really good conversation with Jordan Peterson. If you want to listen to it, you're like, wow, this guy's onto it. And I think he's conservative, it's fair to say. And he is going to win, and that's going to change. And then you got Australia elections, I think.
That'll change in the UK elections.
Yeah, well, UK had just had elections. That's how
when
Keir
are the next
Starmer got
one?
in.
Yeah, but they're coming up in the next couple of years, aren't they?
No, they're every 5 years.
Was it 5 in the UK? Sorry,
I think
stand
so.
corrected.
I think so. It's 4 or 5, something
Okay.
like that. That's why Elon Musk calling for re-elections and vote of no confidence for Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
And he's using all of this stuff to embarrass the British people. And so they feel like, wow, I don't want to be associated to you guys because you guys are doing this child grooming gang things. What the hell?
But that story's been around for a while. It's now given another breath of life. And
Yeah, through Tommy Robinson's arrests and
yeah.
Gatsard had a really good debate with Piers Morgan about Tommy Robinson and why his character is what is kind of
Well, Tommy's got a bit of a checkered past, shall we say? The ADL wasn't renowned for their love and peace and unity, and so
yeah. It's
the British Defence League.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like you look at the French elections that happened, there was this right wing candidate. Forgot her name now. Marie someone.
Yeah, Le Pen.
Marie Le Pen, right? Marie Le Pen, and she was pushed by all of these guys, right? Because they want to use anything to get rid of the woke ideology and the woke leadership. But Marie Le Pen grew up in a household where her parents loved Hitler. And they taught Marie Le Pen to call Hitler, whenever he came on TV, Uncle Dolphy.
Wow.
I think this is a true story because I read it somewhere. It might be a wrong story, but there's a lot of that stuff. There's a lot of that. You go, whoa, what's going on over here? Uncle Dolphy? Really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is also what scares me is there's clearly a problem with the far left, undoubtedly. The support for terror against Israel, this, don't know what a man or a woman is, cultural relativism is, it's sick. It's clearly a problem. There's also clearly a problem with the far right. Most people acknowledge that much more readily, right? And so when you're grown up, admiring Hitler, there's a problem if you're going to be leading a country, I think, unless you've renounced it. And so where is the middle ground? We're constantly being tried to be pushed apart, and people do get pushed apart. And then MMP is also contributing a little bit. Although I've come around a little bit. I used to be, when it first came in, I wasn't quite sure it was going to be good. But actually, there are parts to it I really respect.
I think the next couple of elections will probably see MMP kind of working the way it should, because what you're going to see is you're going to see National Party lose some seats. So you would end up...
And where do you think the vote's going to go?
It's going to go to New Zealand First and ACT. So the idea is that you end up having 3 parties that are equally the same size based on the seats that they get. Then there's like a equal negotiation across all. Instead of like 2 big parties or 1 big party. National Party, I think it's pretty disappointing what they've managed to achieve last year. Everyone's not happy.
Labour light.
Yeah, exactly. And Labour has gone up in polls, which was from the Taxpayers Union. And there's another poll where it looks like the coalition would still maintain government. I think they would coming next year. But New Zealand, yeah, I mean, it's disappointing because you see what Trump's doing in America and all the executive orders that he signed. Over here is so incremental. It's like, oh, let's not rock the boat. And this is what I was talking with Nick.
I quite like that,
morning,
though, to a certain degree. This radical change, whichever way, whether you agree with it or not, I think has a destabilizing force and a swing further to extremes, right? So the next president comes in and writes more executive orders, and then it's an executive order arms race. I think gradual, informed direction changes make a lot more sense to me.
Yeah.
The problem is, I think for too long there's been incremental changes in one way, and now we have a need to get back a little bit more quickly. And what mechanisms can we use that don't have that arms race? And like Trump pardoning all the January 6th rioters, what? Like, no. I think some of the things that he's doing is clearly egregious. Is probably.
I think he has not done all of them. I think there are a few that still need to be investigated. But yes, he's done to most of them. And yeah, you can disagree with it, but I think the fact that we've kind of gone way too far in one direction, if you try to get back incrementally, we have seen that it hasn't worked. But if you look at Argentina, right? They've gone full noise the other way. They've got a surplus, first time in 100 years.
Milei has done remarkable things for that
country. So why can't we do that here? What's the problem? Why are we doing all this? Why are we playing incremental games and not let's just do it? Iraq had more GDP per capita growth in 2024 than New Zealand in last year, according to the IMF.
Growth in relative terms?
Yeah, GDP per capita. We out of 182 countries.
Because it's easier to go up a percentage when you start much lower, right? So be careful with the statistics. So if I'm at 100 and you're at 1, it's easier for you to get to 1.1 than it is for me to get to 110.
I don't know the
details. We both have a 10% increase.
But
your general point.
The general point is we are 179 in the ranking of IMF in terms of our economy out of 182 countries.
Yeah, that's not good.
It's like...
it doesn't sound good, but I don't understand exactly what it means.
I'd be happy if we were like, 50, 70 or 30 or, It's like 179th.
But what is that statistic?
It's the IMF. Come on, I get it.
But is it?
It's the GDP growth.
Percentage growth.
Yes.
Yeah. So I take that with a pinch of salt because it's easier for you to get to 1.1 from 1 than it is for me to get to 110 from 100, and that's a 10% increase for both of us, right?
Yeah.
So if we're increasing, that's probably a good sign.
Okay, what indicators would you use to say that, New Zealand's incremental approach is kind of working? Is it unemployment? Is it the jobs they're creating? Is it small business? Is it better health service?
Yeah,
but if you look at the reshuffles they're doing in the cabinet, there's an indication that there are a lot of things that may have not worked the way they should have worked.
Yeah, that reshuffle is interesting to me.
There's billions of dollars missing in the financial budget. They're borrowing more. Really? Deficit has been pushed back to what they first said. They have brought Simeon Brown to be the Minister of Health. They've removed Shane Ritty. Well, what's going on there? Apparently the wait time for surgeries, and this is very long. So what is it? I mean, I'm aware of the notion of misinformation and this negative rage farming, but I mean, what indications do you see that are positive?
Well, I think all the metrics that you laid out before are good KPIs. Waiting times, GDP, unemployment, etc. Those are all good benchmarks and KPIs to be looking at. I think my point is, rather than looking at it and expecting things to change very rapidly in a short space of time, I'd rather that whatever changes there are made deliberately and constructively over a period of time, and those measures come up so that they last, rather than there's this immediate sweeping change that happens to bump it up a little bit, and then it goes potentially further back down. And then the other revenge effect is that the next government that comes in takes the precedent of executive order, does what they want the other way, and then there's the KPIs that you used are strong, but if you take a more cultural perspective, more censorship, self-censorship, people not being able to talk about various issues because that's the executive orders are signaling all of that stuff. So I'm wary of revolution now and anyone that claims that they can make utopia overnight. I'd much rather a slow and steady build in the right direction and the trajectory always going the right way over a period of time that fixes problems, particularly for socio-political issues, because the danger that I see is too much power consolidated at the government level. And that's not necessarily just what they can do, but how quickly they can do it as well.
Yeah, it's important to mention that we function in a political, democratic environment. When these guys go up for elections, they make claims, they campaign, they're saying we're going to bring back the country, we're going to fix the economy, right? And that's what you vote for, and that's where you set your benchmark of your expectation. And you know that you're only in for 3 years. You don't have a lot of time. So if you're going to come back and say, well, they've actually, we got in and we think they've screwed it up it's really bad. So we can't really meet our promises, but we've made a good start. Vote for us again. If you start changing your narrative.
No, I don't think that's going to fly. But if you come in and you say, we're going to do this over this period of time, and you go and you do that over that period of time,
yeah,
great.
Yeah.
Look, we're not where we want to be.
That's fair. They're just starting the second year. That's fair.
Those are the things I think to be looking at.
Yeah. Well, let's see how they go, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if they don't, then they're out.
That's the name of the game.
Yeah, if they do, they carry on.
Well, sometimes it is. It's also, I think some people vote not just for who they dislike, but who they dislike more. And so even if you don't meet targets, if you think the other guys are going to be worse. So I don't know.
It's bizarre, isn't it? And I think that's what happened in the UK. It's like, why would you vote for a Labour government? And that's because they have grown sick of the Conservatives being in power for 14 years or something. Yeah. So they're like, well, don't like this guy.
Let's get change go.
He's going to cause a lot of issues with free speech, blah, blah, blah. But just, we need to... Yeah, it's bizarre how politics kind of work.
It is.
And I wouldn't be surprised if the Labour Party got back in government in New Zealand.
I wish I understood politics better to be able to predict and use it to my advantage, but I'm a pretty simple guy in these respects.
Yeah, same.
I don't like funding terror. I want the roads to be fixed at a council level. Let's focus on the important things: health, education, crime.
Yeah. What do you think is the state of education at universities these days?
Oh gosh. That's a huge question, Adnan.
Yeah. You've got 2 more hours.
We might leave that for our next discussion.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't want to get into that.
Well, I'll get into it, but you made me look at my watch.
Do you have to shoot?
Soon. But generally what I'd say is I think overall the education is really good. Unfortunately, and this doesn't just apply to the academy or universities or even just to schools. I think this applies generally. We're talking about journalism before. I think there is a strong ideological capture among small but influential groups of those various bodies. Mm-hmm. And more importantly, within the administrative bodies of those organizations, that is pushing their ideology more than they should be, and not focusing on core business. And so as a result, the core business suffers, whether it's journalism or whether it's teaching. It suffers. And one of the good things that I've seen about the new government is there's been pushback to that. They've come back and said in a number of areas, focus on the core business.
Yeah, back
Leave
to basics.
the ideology aside, focus on the core business.
Yeah.
Right? Now, unfortunately, because of what I mentioned before, there's pushback from the administration and there's pushback from the civil servants and there's, those small but influential groups of ideologically driven people not wanting to hear the message of stick to core business.
Yeah.
So there's work to do. But the signals that we should focus on core business, I think, are really, really, really good. What does that mean for the university? I think it largely comes down to who you have as a lecturer. I'll share a story with you because I do a very little amount of lecturing, and relatively. And one of the courses that I teach is a module on ethics, and I give it. We have a discussion with engineering students. We can get into all that later. It's a wonderful class. I thoroughly enjoy it. Every year we get to discuss really difficult topics, and I encourage dissenting views and debate, and I will play devil's advocate to promote it.
Yeah.
So that we have a real robust discussion about often very difficult things. And believe me, in my classes, it's been everything from the Holocaust to abortion to legalize marijuana, whatever. I want the discussion to be had. I want engaged students to be thinking, and we can get to the principles of the philosophy and the ethics. I was really worried about teaching my class last year because I don't know if you remember, but there were posters with my pictures on them around the university.
Yeah.
Zionists not wanted here.
Yeah.
Some pretty nasty stuff had been going on, and I was really anxious about what would happen if a student decided to cause a kerfuffle. And I had all these scenarios in my head and how I was going to deal with them, and I had this whole thing going on. Anyway, we got through the module. It was a couple of weeks module, and one of the students turned up with a keffiyeh one day, and there were a few accessories worn in my class that were uncomfortable, but no one raised it and no one made an issue of it, and we stuck to the class and we had a good discussion and we got through the material.
Yeah.
On one of the classes, a student came in a little bit early, and as I tend to do, I said, "How you doing? What's going on?" We had a bit of a minute or two catch up, and he said, "Were you on a podcast?" Oh. Your podcast had shown up on his social media feed.
Right.
So well done for the algorithm.
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah, that's me." He goes, "Oh, yeah, it just showed up randomly on my feed, and I didn't know." I was like, "Yeah, that's me." And then other students came in, and we started the class, and nothing more was said.
Yeah.
Fast forward, it's a couple of months later, and I've got a research assistant working with me on one of the projects, and she happened to be in that class. And she said to me, as we were having lunch one day, "Oh, by the way, after your lectures, someone saw a podcast that you'd done." So obviously word had gone around. She said, "We had no idea of your politics before." So my first response to that was, well, you still don't really know my politics. You know my views on one subject or a group of subjects, but you don't know who I vote for. You don't know my politics.
Yeah.
No one really knows who I vote for, really. But that all aside, I was so proud that I mean, none of my thoughts had been infused into the lectures to the point where anyone had any idea where I stood.
Yeah.
My professional duty to teaching is above any of my thoughts and ideas and opinions in politics.
Has to be.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not for some other lecturers.
Right.
Right? That's my point. And that then means the education suffers.
Yeah.
Because it's not about the content, it's not about the principles, it's not about the substance, it's not about the arguments, it's about the politics. In the same way that the journalism is about for some people about the politics over the principles. And so my fear is that those small but vocal group of people who put their politics ahead of the principles and are in influential positions and administrative positions, and a lack of leadership to push back on that and say stick to core business, means that this collective problem may get a little bit worse. At least in the academy, I think there are, we're looking forward to the Gluckman report on the universities in New Zealand, but there's also, I think, I don't know, I'm probably naive and optimistic again, but I'm hopeful that there are enough academics that might stand up to some of the stuff going on. I'm aware of a couple of cases that there's pushback, and I'm hopeful they're going to win as well.
Yeah.
So your question was very loaded. There's a lot more to discuss, but in general, I think it's okay. I think there could be room for improvement, and I think the problem is, as always, a small group of loud and influential people, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And a lack of leadership.
Yeah, I think common sense and back to basics always wins, no matter how you get there and when you get there. But that's kind of like, when I did my master's degree, before I did my research, I was asked to write a 3,000 words on ethics. I said, well, what do you mean by ethics? Well, they said, oh, we want to make sure that you don't get in the way of your research. And I'm saying, what are you talking about? It's my research, it's my ideas. I don't know, It's like, no. It's not about you. It's about the research. And I was like, okay. This is bizarre, but I'll do it. So I did it. I wrote 3,000 words on, and it was painful because I was kind of like, have to look at myself in a mirror and understand like how I behave and who I am and what ideas do I have and what is this research. And so they made me go back and back and back. It's like, what about these ideas? Do you think you will infiltrate these ideas? But the outcome of that was a really good research paper and me learning what exactly you just mentioned is that no matter what the world is in state of, you've got the material, you've got responsibilities, you've got students, and you're focused on that. You're not bringing in everything else. If you really want to know who I am, well, go listen to my podcast, and that's okay.
Well, I'm happy to have a chat after class.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's also important for students who do listen to your podcasts, and whatever podcast you do, is to not have any preconceived idea of who David Cumin is, but I'm just in the classroom and I'm listening and reading to that content. Otherwise, you have self-censorship going on in your brain, and that's also a concern because you want these kids to have very strong ethics themselves. That's if you leave university, the two most important things you can get out of university is ethics and have a lot of fun and just grow up, Forget about everything else, Ethics and fun. That's, I think, two good things in the world that we should maintain. But this has been fun.